what I wanted to do is really, if you don't have actually a fixed program in place, how you can actually really use your Strava account. Many cyclists, most people, whether you're, just doing one ride a week or you're training on a full-on program for a really specific goal, I'm sure that you probably have a Strava account if you're watching this video. So I wanted to really just dial in today and give you some guidance on how you can potentially get more from that account there, use some of the metrics that Strava gives you to actually ensure that you're maximizing each of your rides, even if you don't have a specific structured training program in place. So let's just pull up Strava then and get stuck straight into it. So really in Strava, the key feature that we're going to look at today to ensure that you are, if you've been following me for a while, I speak a lot about training zones, ensure that you're accumulating the right amount of time within each specific training zone. We've obviously discussed over the past few weeks a lot around threshold, around VO2 max, for some training sessions, but also zone 2 endurance. And what we're going to really look at, the feature in Strava today, is zone distribution. So this is a ride that I actually did this morning, just an hour, as you can see, easy, sort of zone 2, bit of just an endurance riding, squeezed an hour in this morning on the trainer. And you will be able to access this on any of your rides. So you can, on the ride, if you look at it on a tablet, laptop or PC, it would probably be nicer for you to just view the data. However, this feature is also available in the mobile app, and you will be able to see your full range of structured zones and everything here. So on the right, go to zone distribution. And as you can see here, then this actually really gives you a nice overview, one, of just being able to identify what your zones actually are. We're going to use we're going to focus more on the what zone distribution today, but you can also access this and look at your heart rate zones as well. But for today, we're really just going to focus on the wattage. So here, it's nice to actually align and see the different types of powers, the different levels of power, and how they relate to your zones in your fitness. Now, just one thing on this to really make sure that these zones are set really nice and accurate. This is something that I touched on one of my earlier videos in the year, that it is really important that you do perform some regular baseline testing, and that will allow you to ensure that these zones are actually set at the right level. So whether you do that in the form of an FTP test, if you can track power, as I said, we're going to use power in this example today. You may perform an FTP test, you can perform the 20-minute effort, you can perform the ramp test, whichever one sort of works best with you and what you have available. And once you have that result from the FTP, you can base it and set your Strava settings, input your FTP into Strava. You can click on there, and the number down the bottom there, as you say, it's popped up. As you see, it says update your FTP. You can set that, and then from there, Strava will give you a real nice basic structure here. As you can see, your training zones from 1 to 7, and it explains them really nicely there. Obviously, zone 1 is really just nice active recovery. And then, as I've already mentioned, some of the zones and things that I talk about in my videos, we've already referred to over the past few weeks, a little around zone 2 endurance training, if you're trying to improve your endurance, as I was saying in last week's video. But then also the key, structured interval sessions that I went through last week on how you can actually start to piece those together. I gave you some intensity examples that you can follow. I gave you a framework in terms of the timings of those intervals, and you can really see here, threshold for you, where your wattage will be, and VO2 max. Now, how this can be really useful if you're not following a structured training program is you can ensure, let's say that you're going out and or you're on the trainer and you want to accumulate some time at threshold or VO2 max, or identify where your endurance zone is it's quite nice, one, before the ride, as I say, is you're actually, through doing this, see the ranges of each zone and where you need to be targeting to ensure that you are accumulating sufficient amount of time, or you're actually really riding in that zone to ensure that you're maximizing progress. Because some people will just, they jump on the bike, they just go all out, ride, won't really pay maybe much attention to having some of this structure in place, and wonder why then potentially after a period of time of just jumping on and riding, they will hit a plateau and won't see any progress. So what's really nice about this, even if you don't have a specific training program in place, is you can actually say, do you know what, today I'm going to try and do some threshold riding, and I'm really actually, I'm going to go onto Strava, have a look where my zones are. So you can see, okay, zone 4, that's where my threshold is. If I'm going out and I'm trying to do some threshold work, I need to be ensuring that I'm accumulating some time between 337 and 392 watts. As I said in my example last week, depending on your intervals, obviously the shorter the threshold interval that I'm performing, I'm going to be closer to the 392 watts. The longer the threshold interval that I'm performing, if I'm doing some of those 2 times 15, 2 times 20-minute examples that I mentioned last week, then I'm going to be closer to the 337 range. So that's where you'll see, obviously, you've got that range there. Depending on the interval duration, that's where you'll adjust it, whether it's at the higher end of the range or obviously the lower end of the range. But by this, or looking at this, right, if I'm doing some threshold work today, whether that's on the train or whether it's on the road, whether that's on the climb, that's what I want to actually be targeting to ensure that I'm really focusing on that threshold energy system, and that from that, you can actually ensure you're accumulating the time at that intensity to really maximize your progress. Exactly the same then with VO2 max. As you can see today, my specific aim of this session was to just do a little bit of zone 2 endurance riding. I did an hour, and from that hour, I managed to accumulate 57 minutes at zone 2. Nice, easy, cruisy ride, and that's a good percentage. If you're doing, if I'm saying I want to go and do a zone 2 ride and I'm doing 95% of the time at zone 2, then I've achieved my goal for the session. And that's really nice then. Coming on to that is then after the session, when you're doing, a little bit of analysis, and I'm sure you maybe like looking at numbers like me and many riders, we like to look at our numbers and see how we're progressing. But what's really nice with this is it then actually shows you the percentage of time that you've spent, or the exact time here, as you can see, that you've spent at each intensity. So if you're saying you're going out and you're trying to do some zone 2 endurance riding to maximize those zone 2 benefits, aerobic capacity, increased mitochondrial density, all of those great things that are associated with zone 2 training, but you're coming back from a zone 2 specific ride and you're seeing that you've actually spent 50% of the ride at threshold, then you know that you've ridden too hard. You would have felt that anyway, probably on the ride. But just by actually having access to these numbers and looking at this analysis, it's allowing you to actually bring some structure to your training, some science behind your training, and actually ensuring, as I say, the big thing is that if you say there's a specific goal for today's ride, it's zone 2, threshold, VO2 max, whatever it may be, that when you come back and you do some analysis, you actually say, do you know what? My goal for the ride this morning was just to do a nice, easy hour at zone 2, and okay, brilliant. I've achieved 95% of the time, 57 minutes of the hour were at zone 2, so I know that I've achieved the outcome of the ride. Likewise, I said, right, Seth, I was going to go and do some VO2 max intervals, depending on the duration, and I see that, okay, I want to go and achieve, just as an example, 20 minutes at VO2 max today. Obviously, I might break that up in different length intervals to achieve that 20 minutes. But coming back and looking at this analysis here, this actually shows that, okay, one, I've seen the time. Have I achieved the 20 minutes, the percentage of that of the ride? And that way, that really allows you to just dial in and make sure that you're achieving that there. So I hope that's useful. I just think follow on maybe from last week's video. If you didn't watch last week's video, please be sure to go back and watch it. Hopefully that will really help a little bit about these sort of intensities that I'm talking about, threshold, VO2 max, how often you should be doing those. But I also gave some examples there. And then this is quite nice to follow on from that. If you haven't got any structure, actually, okay, where you can start to bring some structure in by just identifying where your training zones are, and then actually allowing you to perform a little bit of analysis yourself to ensure that you're just being a little bit more accurate with your rides. That's going to improve the quality of your rides. And if you're currently experiencing a bit of a plateau and you're not already doing this, and just looking at, are you actually accumulating the time in the zones that you need to make that progress, then this is a great tool with your Strava account. I'm sure if you're watching this video and you follow me on the channel, then you've probably got a Strava account and you can really use it a bit more to your advantage there. So I hope you found that useful. As I say, I make these videos, been doing this now past 10 to 15 years. If I can fast track you to your goals without having to take that amount of time, then I've done my job with these videos. If you found this useful, please drop a like on the video. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Trying to put out loads of stuff here on training, fueling, nutrition, structure. As I say, what I've learned in my own personal journey and I found has worked for me, going from an FTP of 225 to now, over 350, 370, 374 watts. What's worked for me, but also with the hundreds of clients that I've helped and we've helped achieve their goals. Hope you found that useful. Keep riding, fuel smart, ride strong. Speak to you soon.